What food doesn't taste as good as it used to? KFC has gone way downhill in the past 25 years. It's all the shitty ran franchises. I was craving a big crunch and it was garbage. I kept trying and eventually had a good one at a mall food court because they actually made it fresh. The standalone KFC made stuff in advance and left it under the heat lamp. Hostess snack cakes. Yes. Little Debbie's too. I remember getting excited about buying a ton of snack cakes as a freshman in college, then getting back to my dorm and being massively underwhelmed. Little Debbie brownies as a kid were the best. Now they are just too dense and don't taste like anything but disappointment. Comic brownies? They have the texture of compressed oil. Calorie bombs. Tim Hortons donuts, they used to be the bomb when they were made in store, then restaurant brands bought them and decided it was better, cheaper, to make them in a factory and ship them to stores to have them heated and topped. Nah, I miss old-time Hortons, I refuse to go there now. Even the coffee is horrendous. That's like their thing too. I drink my coffee black so it sticks out to me more, but it has some kind of weird chemical taste to it. It's like too acidic or something. I think that's why people who only drink Tim's often end up packing it with sugar and dairy, because otherwise it's undrinkable. McDonald's coffee is 10 out of 10 though. Hands down the best chain drip. Eark, they are literally severing the old Tim's blend though, at least in Canada. Also, I worked a summer in a Tim Hortons and filled in at some other stores. Let's just food safety, hygiene and sanitization was lacking. Timmy's used to buy their roasted and ground coffee from Mother Parkers in Mississauga, Ontario. In 2009, Timmy's opened their own roasting, grinding facility in Ancaster, Ontario. At the same time, McDonald's was planning to launch McCafe and they started buying roasted and ground coffee from Mother Parkers. It just happens to taste very similar to Tim Hortons' old coffee. Some say it's exactly the same. My biggest problem with Tim Hortons coffee is the inconsistency. Most locations are capable of making a decent coffee, but it rarely happens these days. This is why I don't buy their coffee anymore. Then you have McDonald's, the absolute kings of consistency, upping their coffee game and giving you the same quality coffee across the country. Pizza Hut. It used to be almost unreasonable good for a chain restaurant. I worked at a Hut in the mid-90s. Definitely way less good now. We used to make our own deep dish dough then, as opposed to using frozen, but I think the other ingredients have also taken a step back as well. I currently work at Pizza Hut as a cook. The amount of grease, oil used in basically all dishes is astonishing. Literally like 4 to 8 ounces of oil per deep dish pan. Best one to get to avoid it is a thin and crispy. Or just go to Domino's, they have good. Lots of oil in a deep dish pan isn't a mark of low quality. It's the nature of the beast. You don't get that nice charred crust unless you're essentially frying it. Butterfingers or Nestle chocolate in general. Butterfingers are super gross now. Bought one out of a vending machine and thought it was bad. Googled it to find a bunch of people complaining about it. How do you screw up so bad? It's probably cheaper, but I'd think you'd lose enough sales to counter that. I won't buy one again for sure. They can't even list chocolate as an ingredient anymore. They used to be my favorite. I thought for sure that had to be a myth. Looked it up. Shocked that it is not. I don't think I'm ever going to eat another Butterfinger. Pop-Tarts. They are chalky, pasty and so thin now. I have found that most store brands taste like the old Pop-Tarts. Now when I get a craving for Pop-Tarts I get the store brand, save money and they taste better. This is probably true. My favorite as a kid were apple Pop-Tarts from Food Lion. Pizza Hut. Best day of the month was when my mom would take me to get my free book at Personal Pan Pizza. It didn't get much better than having that pizza all to myself with a Coke in the red plastic cup and a quarter for Pac-Man. Life was so much simpler then. Read books, get pizza. My grandma's cooking. She left me her recipes when she passed, but I still can't recreate her magic. I've been warning people for decades that tamales are headed right off a fucking cliff as nanas get arthritic or pass away. Mexican kids, please get in the kitchen this Christmas. You will learn a sublime art that you will only improve at over the decades. Please. Every family does them different and that knowledge is slowly being lost. Edit. Forgot to mention that tamales as icebreakers or tokens of friendship are an unbeatable weapon. No other food on earth can convey the sentiment of, here is a literal bundle of pure love, so precisely and succinctly, and since they get made in batches of a dozen dozens, you'll have plenty of ammo. My husband's grandma used to make tamales every year, but between arthritis and her 2 heart attacks she doesn't make them anymore. So I do the actual work and she walks me through it. I ain't even her flesh and blood, but like fucking hell I'm going to let her tamales stop being a holiday staple in our family. Nearly all mass-market American candy bars have gone downhill. Even Hershey bars. Stuff tastes like brown wax. Good gourmet, specialty bars abound, but they'll cost. Worth it, thought. The wax feeling comes from palm oil. You'll notice it in supermarket cookies too and many other products. And avoid it because it's a shitty ingredient but also responsible for the destruction of forests. 8% of deforestation on the planet between 1990 and 2008 is attributed to palm oil production. Also fucks up our orangutan homies due to killing and said forestry loss, so I try to avoid that stuff like the plague. Supermarket produce in general, selecting for beautiful produce that people are more likely to buy, shipping it underripe so it can be moved further, etc., has absolutely tanked flavor. Puts the cart before the horse, and it's worn people down until they don't know what real food tastes like. Some go so far as to flavor inject it after with industrial flavors, like purple, artificial Concord grape, like the grapple. Supermarket peaches probably suffer the most for this. Hard and flavorless. I bought some nectarines this week that smelled nice. Died a little inside when they crunched like hard styrofoam. Chips Ahoy chewy chocolate chip. I used to be able to eat a whole sleeve of those as a kid, they were so good. Now they taste so processed and like, kinda stale? It's disappointing. I remember thinking they tasted processed and stale as a kid, 20 plus years ago, so I don't know that they've actually changed lol. Yeah, they've always been shit. I grew up in the 80s, tried some at a friend's house on a sleepover. They were terrible. Tried them again in the 90s when I went off to college. Still tasted like chemicals and preservatives. Thin Mints, most other Girl Scout cookies since they changed manufacturer, but I miss the old Thin Mints the most. Go to Walmart and buy the knockoff Great Value version. Yes, they even knock off Girl Scouts. They're $1.89 and taste like old school Girl Scouts, and you can buy them all year long. I am convinced it's the same manufacturer as the old stuff, even though I have no way to prove it. You're welcome. Aldi also has had a few knockoffs, similar to the former Samoas and the peanut butter ones. Milk chocolate. Stuff like Hershey's that they give out for Halloween. It doesn't taste the same anymore. Tastes cheaper and blander. Apparently the type of cacao that's being used to make the mass-produced chocolates is a more bland yet more resilient variety. Here's the real talk follow-up question. Has the food changed in all of these instances, or have we? Both, fruit and veg have been bred for looks, longevity and sturdiness, not flavor. Processed foods have had laws to restrict the amount of fat or salt, country dependent, so they taste worse. Our taste buds acclimatize to the levels of salt and sugar, so over time food tastes blander. Plus your taste buds get worse over time generally. Don't forget high fructose corn syrup instead of sugar, and food manufacturers picking crops green to ship and stored for months before being artificially ripened. Typical store apple is stored about 10 months after harvest. Corn pops ever since they got rid of the foil bag. They got rid of the foil bag? Is nothing sacred? Tomatoes. It's because they breed them for better shelf life and transport rather than taste, as that's how they can make the most profits. Juicy fruit gum. They ruined the flavor 20 years ago. It tastes bitter after 20 seconds. They should just discontinue the gum. That's the artificial sweetener they added to it. It tastes like a tire fire. They did it to all the classic Wrigley's flavors: Juicy Fruit, Big Red, Spearmint, Double Mint, Winterfresh. They're all awful now. Red Delicious apples. Honey Crisp is the way to go for sure. I prefer a Fuji. Honey Crisp is too sweet emo. Closing parenthesis. I like both, but Fuji is definitely a favorite. Pink Lady apples are something to search for, but it can be better in things, like salads or baked. My wife makes an amazing peanut butter fluff that complements them amazingly, for a serving suggestion without cooking. Burger King. Burger King was so much better when I was growing up in the 90s. I miss those nuggets and fries. Their nuggets are actually trash now. They taste like deer ankles now. Cadbury's. It's the palm oil substitution. New Zealand managed to get it out, but the damage is done. I'm not sure if that's true elsewhere. Australia, too. Although as you're in NZ or Aus and not eating Whitakers, you're doing it wrong. And Carl Urban is very disappointed. Closing square bracket opening parenthesis closing parenthesis.